Siege warfare is old as human civilization, and there are countless examples of sieges in the history of humankind. All of them involve breaking a people's resolve, and the most effective way to do it is hunger. So the weaponization of food in order to achieve political goals is an evil practice that some parties rely on in order to kneel the civilian population, to break their steadfastness and determination, and eventually to destabilize nations and crumble political regimes. In the last episode, I addressed the energy war against Syria. In short, the US and its proxy forces occupy half of Syria's oil resources in the eastern shores of the Euphrates. Additionally, Washington and Brussels impose illegal economic sanctions that prevent Syria from buying its energy needs from abroad. Lately, Syria bought 300,000 tons of crude oil from Iran, but the UK authorities in Gibraltar have stopped the oil tanker, an illegal action that mounts to state-sponsored piracy and economic terrorism. And speaking about economic terrorism, I received some comments, obviously, from some people who don't care about the Syrian people, telling me that the seizure of the tanker cannot be called an act of terrorism. Well, you are wrong. The main purpose of these sanctions is to terrorize the Syrian people by depriving them of their basic needs, and by doing so, the US and the EU are simply telling the Syrian people, kneel or starve. If this is not terrorism, I don't know what is it. Today, a leaked document published by the Lebanese Al Akhbar newspaper reveals the role of Ilham Ahmed, co-head of the so-called Syrian Democratic Council, which is a US-backed Kurdish entity. Her role is to cooperate with Israeli Mossad operative Mordechai Kahana in order to sell the looted oil of Syria from the eastern shores of the Euphrates to the global market. Not only the anti-Syria can ban us of buying crude oil, but also medicine and many medical equipment that contains American technology. Worse still is the weaponization of food. In 2019, heavy rainfalls had raised hopes for an ample harvest that would cover 60% of Syria's local market needs, but in the last few months, we have witnessed massive fires that ravaged more than 150,000 hectares of wheat and barley fields in the US-occupied areas in the eastern shores of the Euphrates. And the videos that documented the fires indicate that there wasn't any serious attempt to save the strategic crops of Syria. The suspects behind this tragedy are not many. The area is occupied by the US forces and its proxies, the Kurdish militias, and there are also ISIS sleeping cells. But whoever did it, the blame is on the US. For one, the illegal occupation of a land that consists most of Syria's oil and wheat. Two, the mismanagement of the occupied areas, and three, failing to provide security to this area. This is not the first time the US and its allies rely on evil techniques to pursue their political goals. Let's remember what the US did to Iraq.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it.
Yes, the US sanctions have killed over 500,000 Iraqi children, and Washington is ready to kill hundreds of thousands more to preserve its hegemonic global status. In Iraq, when the situation in the 90s has become unbearable, Bill Clinton administration introduced the Oil for Food program to the UN in 1995 to allow Iraq to sell oil to the world market in exchange for food, medicine, and other humanitarian needs. Just imagine for a second, you live in any Western city and we deprive you of food, medicine, and energy resources. Then we introduce a program to the UN that bargains the most valuable thing you have with your basic needs. It's a horrible idea, right? A few weeks ago, I attended an event in Berlin where Idris Jazari, a special rapporteur on the negative impact of the unilateral coercive measures on the enjoyment of human rights, has introduced a similar idea for Syria. Now, in your opinion, is the United States adopting a similar strategy in Syria? And are we going to see similar UN program for Syria?
When the damage, the collateral damage of sanctions reaches such a level, one should at least ask oneself the question, is there not some alternative? I have suggested concretely, because I don't get into politics, three simple approaches. First point, that's the money that is frozen of the central bank of Syria. They can't use that money. Can't we decide to have a food for the poor program that would be financed by their own money, but that would be money that would be unfrozen under the control of the UN to make sure that the poorest in Syria get some wheat